Okay, I apologize for being a few minutes late. We had like the same issue with the frickin' iPad and the camera and everything, so it's alright. Hello. Thank you for showing up. I had to install and reinstall the YouTube app, and then I like quickly tried to post and then realized that there was like a ridiculous typo in the title, so after growling at the world, I am now here. Hello. Thank you all for showing up. Now, I gotta find myself, and then we can get started. But I wanted to, first of all, check and see if you guys have good audio, because I have a fan blowing all my wispies across this direction. So, thank you for showing up. And let me know, okay, just let me know if you get like wind noise or anything, because it's quite hot today. And I'm trying my best. Okay, so I was going to start with a question from Instagram, where someone left me some good questions. The first one that I wanted to start with was someone asked if when you have hypothyroid or low thyroid function, if you can have kale or other cruciferous vegetables. So, yes, short answer. Cruciferous vegetables are some of the healthiest plants that human beings can eat, right? So we don't want to just cut those out of our diet for no reason. The issue when it comes to hypothyroid is that kale and such is, some chemicals within cruciferous vegetables can inhibit the absorption or utilization of iodine in people who already have low iodine. So if you're getting enough dietary iodine, you don't have to worry about eating cruciferous vegetables, even if you have hypothyroid. So it's also important to get enough iodine without getting too much iodine, which is so easy to do. And Dr. Greger recommends, and I think this is a good recommendation, to just have like 1.5 sheets of nori, or I think it was like either a half teaspoon, I think it was a half teaspoon of dulse flakes every day, and that'll get you up around 150 micrograms of iodine per day. So that's a good way to do it. I don't really recommend I don't recommend taking a supplement that contains iodine, because it's really easy to get too much, okay? And then I kind of wanted to segue this into another, topic that was also a question that I got on Instagram. And while we're talking about hypothyroid, like, one of the most important aspects of healing hypothyroid, in my opinion, is taking care of the psychological causes of hypothyroid or other endocrine issues. So, you know, I had hypothyroid, and I told my naturopath one day, I said, I think my mother is my hypothyroid, because it's really bad when I live with her, and most of my symptoms seem to go away when I move out of her house. And while I think that it's so important to make sure that your body is getting the correct physical inputs, like, we can't get around that. Good diet, rest, hydration, all of that is so important. But the psychological issues that can cause hypothyroid needs to be addressed. So, like, when I lived with my mom, I felt like I couldn't speak. Like, I just felt like my throat was totally closed up. I couldn't express myself. I couldn't have needs. I had to just be a certain way, or I was unacceptable. And living with that oppressive feeling in my throat, I don't think helped my thyroid. You know, like I said, I don't think I would have gotten better if I hadn't changed my diet and my lifestyle, but if I had just, you know, ignored all of that psychological stuff and tried to get better, which I did do for a long time, healing isn't complete. So that's something that needs to be addressed. And then the other question that I had gotten on Instagram was how to like purposefully get yourself more grounded. And the girl who had asked the question, you know, she's an introvert, she's feeling really overwhelmed with, like, running a business and living in a city, and how does she get that, like, quiet time to really ground herself? So when I think about grounding myself, I kind of equate that with getting in touch with, like, the essence of who I am. And by getting grounded, I consider that to be, like, a connection with myself, and a connection with the earth, and a connection with the present moment. And it can be really difficult to do that if you're trying to run a business, and you're trying to just live life with, you know, like, normal people who are worried about lots of these tedious details of life that may or may not actually matter. So I'll read you something. I read it, I was reading it earlier. This is a quote from this book, Medicine for the Earth. I've been enjoying this one. And she says in her other book, In A Fall to Grace, I use the metaphor of sculpture to describe how forgetting your true essence feels. I describe how the projections, beliefs, attitudes, judgment, and feelings put upon me by family, authority figures, friends, and strangers are like clay being flung onto a sculpture. Before too long, the figurine forged by others no longer contains the truth of who I am. As the clay hardens, I feel an unnatural tension. I become weighed down by the rules of society, the projections cast by others, and the negative feelings in the world around me. The stresses I put myself through create an opening for emotional and physical illness to enter. And she goes on to say, the sad truth is that no one, in an ordinary state of consciousness, sees us for who we really are. And basically, it's our jobs to see ourselves for who we really are. And we have to do that, I believe, by purposely setting aside time to connect with ourselves. And we have to be really realistic about how that is actually done for us. Because, you know, it's different for everybody. Like, for me, going out and being in nature for a while, or taking a nice walk, or going for a run might be a great way for me to connect with myself. For somebody else, that might not work for them. And I think it's important to be honest about what does work. And to be honest about how often we need that. Because, again, we live in a culture where if I take an hour for myself every day, especially if I have kids or a high-pressure job or other responsibilities, it's viewed as selfish and self-indulgent. And that to me is kind of crazy, because it's setting us up to be completely overwhelmed and to fail at what we're doing and to not achieve contentment and happiness. So specifically for the girl who asked the question, you know, living in a city and being overwhelmed by business stuff, I think it's really important to prioritize that time and to make sure that we don't allow the pressures or assumptions or expectations from other people to cloud how we feel about taking that time for ourselves. So don't allow other people to tell you that you are selfish for taking that time. Hold on one second. I'm going to adjust the fan. It's like a small leaf blower. There. So maybe my wispies won't go crazy. Okay. Let's check in with the live chat. All you guys. Okay. Do you think it's okay for someone to get their omega-3s from eating tons of greens and veggies instead of eating high-fat foods, including seeds? There's definitely lots of, I mean, I won't say lots, but there's definitely what could be considered sufficient omega-3 precursor fatty acids in things like greens and veggies, as long as you're eating a lot of them. The thing about omega-3 conversion as well is that it's very dependent on our sex and how old we are. So, like, for me, as a woman in my prime childbearing years, my body is very efficient at converting omega-3s. For someone like Levi, who is a man, his body is not as efficient. And that's because his body does not need as much DHA or EPA. But conversion slows. It can be slower for children. It can be slower for older people. It's slower in men than women. And all of those things can affect whether or not we're getting enough omega-3s. There can also be some like genetic predispositions that can inhibit omega-3 conversion. The other big thing that you hear about most often is that if you're eating a lot of omega-6 fatty acids, those will prevent the omega-3s from being converted as well, which is true because if you're eating a lot of omegas, because omega-6s and omega-3s, they use the same enzymes to convert into longer chain fatty acids, right? Both are important, but ideally you want to get equal ratios of them, or at least close to equal, so that one isn't dominating the conversion process. So if you're only getting fatty acids from things like veggies, there actually could be hey babe, you're going to the beach? That's not fair at all. Whatever. I'll be here. Anyway, there could you. I would love to come, but I'm doing a live stream. Oh. There's a danger that you can actually get too much. Bye. I love you. Too much omega-3s. The ratio can get out of whack, so that you're getting too many omega-3s and not enough omega-6s. That happens especially if you're not having any like significant or regular amount of nuts or seeds in your diet, right? So I would say that it's smarter to include some nuts and seeds in your diet, like flaxseed once or twice a week, or chia seeds or hemp seeds, something like that, and then, you know, a little bit of fresh pumpkin seeds, a little bit of fresh walnuts, a Brazil nut every now and then. Like that's not stuff that's bad for you. Your other option, of course, is an algae-based DHA supplement, which I actually did purchase some for Levi recently, just because I don't trust that he is, that his diet, as excellent as it has been recently, I don't necessarily trust that his diet is sufficient enough in omega-3s. And then, you know, there's also the fact that he's a man, and men will do what they do with their bodies, which can exhaust omega-3 and zinc in their bodies. That's, do you guys know what I'm talking about? Like, they blow a lot of omega-3s and zinc out of their bodies. Anyway. The title doesn't still say hypocrite's thyroid, does it? Sorry about that, jeez. Have I ever froze black beans? Yes, I always freeze my beans, always. I always make so many beans and then I freeze most of them. So yes. Should we get tested for iodine if we need it? If your doctor is doing a blood test and they can test for iodine, I don't think it's a bad idea, just to get an idea of what your levels are. But I mean, if you're like hypothyroid or Hashimoto's, they're probably testing for that anyway. If you're not exhibiting signs of hypothyroid, then getting your iodine levels tested is probably not useless, or probably a little bit useless, but it's totally up to you. There's the idea of the more tests that you have, the more likely you are to be like overdiagnosed or to get like paranoid about your health, you know. But if you're a person like me, maybe you geek out on knowing what's in your blood. Okay. Natural sources of vitamin D, E, K, and calcium. Well, vitamin D is technically a hormone, and it's made when your sun is exposed to light, to sunlight. So it's important to get adequate sun exposure, especially if during the summer months. If you live, I think it's, I can't remember what latitude it is. I think it's like 30. Yeah, if you live above the 30s, then there's a good part of the year where your body isn't able to make vitamin D from the sunlight. In which case, it is important to try to build that up during the summer, because vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin hormone, so it can be stored away in your body fat and fatty tissues. So it's possible to store enough away. If you are like confirmed, been tested by your doctor, and your ranges are not within 20 to 40 in the vitamin D testing spectrum, then you can increase your sun exposure and see if that works. If that doesn't work, you can consider supplementing with vitamin D3 for a time. I'm not a big fan of vitamin D supplements, so I don't recommend everyone go on them because they can end up causing more problems and bigger problems than just some low vitamin D. And all of the hype about vitamin D, while it's interesting, it's not necessarily definitive. So vitamin D from sunlight, if you absolutely can't get your levels up without sunlight, take a supplement until your levels are up. It's a fat-soluble vitamin hormone, so it'll store up in your body. Don't keep taking it, okay? Vitamin E is often found, rich in avocados and mostly nuts and seeds. It's a fat-soluble vitamin, so it's mostly found and absorbable with higher fat foods. You can do like a quick Google search and it'll show you a huge list of plant-based vitamin E sources. Vitamin K, to the best of my knowledge, is very rich in dark leafy greens and other greens, and calcium is, again, a lot of dark leafy greens, a lot of beans, nuts, seeds. We talked about calcium in the last live Q&A, I believe. The amounts that we actually need are not as high as the RDA, so anywhere from like 500 milligrams a day plus is fine. You don't have to get like the 1,000 or 1,200 milligrams a day. That's realistically a lot more than the human body needs. Okay. How much kale would I recommend weekly? So in the like wisely planned vegan diet that I talked about in the video that's called what is a wisely planned vegan diet, I talk about cycling your greens. So it's really important, in my opinion, to eat different classifications of greens at different times in the week, you know? So you don't want to eat kale every single day. Even though cruciferous vegetables are so healthy for us, anything in large amounts every single day, eventually you're going to run into issues. One of those issues could be like, you know, the hypothyroid, the iodine suppression thing. There's something else, I can't think of it off the top of my head, about the cruciferous vegetables too that just makes it better to cycle. The same thing with like spinach. You know, you don't want to eat spinach or chard or beet greens every single day because they're really high in oxalic acid, and those can bind to other minerals and potentially deplete you of things like calcium. Okay? So have spinach. I have it have kale. I have kale like 3 or 4 times a week. I have spinach a couple times a week. I have like arugula every now and then, and lettuce interspersed in between there. You know, just get variety in your diet. Variety trumps everything else, you know? Okay, here's a good question from Kate. She says, I love working out and doing yoga, but how do you find studios and teachers who will teach you proper form so that you're not stressing your body and hurting yourself? That's a very good question because it can be hard to tell. You can go in, like, if I have time to go into a studio and, like, talk to a teacher before I decide to take a class, I will definitely do that and just, like, ask what kind of style they do, ask where they did their training and what that training was like. And then you can pretty much tell, just, like, based on the communication skills a person has, whether or not they know what they're doing, whether or not, as they describe things, like whether or not they're aware of basic anatomy stuff. And you can ask them questions like, so, you know, how do you keep beginners safe in your classes? And most of the time they'll just say, like, oh, I can show you any modification you need, which is true. And I think it's really important for people who do go to yoga classes to actually ask for those modifications if they feel like they're getting into a pose that is painful or doesn't feel possible for them. But to be perfectly honest, like, if you go to a yoga class, it's kind of up to you to keep yourself safe, okay? And you do that by not pushing yourself to a point where you're experiencing pain. It's pretty much that simple. Like, I know we go to yoga classes and we're like, oh, well, she's touching her forehead to her knees, I should try to do that too, but we gotta get out of that, like, ego state. We gotta be okay with going to a yoga class and being like, I am an absolute beginner, I have virtually no idea what I'm doing, and I could hurt myself, okay? So let's just, like, be real about that, right? So, you know, if you're doing a forward fold and your hamstrings are at capacity, don't push further. If you're doing a twisting pose and it's like you feel like your body is twisted far enough, when the teacher says, keep twisting, don't keep twisting. There's no reason to keep twisting, okay? That's how you'd hurt yourself. If you're in a position and you start to think, I feel like my neck could snap in half right now. Stop doing it. Get out of it. If you're doing something and you're thinking, like, feels like my ankle is about to break, stop doing it, you know? Because a lot of these yoga injuries, can be easily prevented by common sense. I don't know where common sense went. Okay. Okay, interesting question. Should I worry if I lost my period? I didn't get it this month, and I'm not pregnant, and I'm not on birth control. She's 18, and she's very thin. I mean, my first question is, like, why are you very thin? Is it because you're not eating? Is it because you've had, like, some disordered eating issues in the past? What's going on there? If you have lost your period because you're not eating enough, that's reason to be concerned, certainly. You need to make sure that you're nourishing your body. If it's just like 1 month and it didn't show up and you're not pregnant, could be that you're just stressed. Could be like, my body skips them every now and then. I don't know why. Usually it's stress, you know, but sometimes it just doesn't show up. Or it, like, decides to take 6 weeks for some reason. It just happens. There's not always some huge issue, okay? All right. Brooke asks, Lily, I just heard Dr. Greger recommend approximately 1 tablespoon of flax seeds per day for omega-3s. He recommends more omega-3 fatty acids to avoid high homocysteine levels, which leads to heart problems. So you're not just going to get your omega-3s from flax seeds, first and foremost. So you'll get it from, like, dark leafy green vegetables, from, like, melons and other fruits and vegetables, other foods. So that's not, you know, the only place you're going to get omega-3s. The other thing about this question specifically, as far as homocysteine levels, is that if you're eating a predominantly whole plant food diet and it's a healthy, varied diet, worrying or stressing out about specific biomarkers isn't necessarily going to be helpful for you, you know, because these biomarkers are not, it's not necessarily a cause and effect relationship. Oftentimes it's just, they're associated, so like high homocysteine is often associated with heart trouble without taking into account major dietary variations and the like. So, you know, like you can start to get into getting really pedantic about this stuff, and I don't think it's going to do too many favors. Another example would be like cholesterol. You know, genetically speaking, I have high cholesterol, and it's not that my cholesterol is high. Like, any doctor would look at my cholesterol and be like, that's phenomenal cholesterol. But it's like, considering the diet I eat, my cholesterol is higher than I'd like it to be. You know, the last time it was measured, it was like at 160, and it's like, I'd really like to be under 150, because that's, you know, heart attack proof, and it's like, that's where I want to be. And my ratio of like, this was several years ago, but my ratio of HDL to LDL was a little bit out of whack, and I do believe that that's because my fatty acid intake wasn't exactly where it needed to be, right? But also, genetically speaking, like, my dad has really high cholesterol. He can't bring it down just through diet, so he's actually on some cholesterol lowering drugs. I'm obviously not on those drugs, and no doctor in their right mind would ever put me on those drugs because I don't need them. But it's like, if I was freaking out about my LDL levels, I probably wouldn't sleep very well at night, you know? But it's like, that's just one biomarker that's associated with something else, and yet I'm doing 1,001 other lifestyle things to put me in a state of really good health. So it's not something that I'm going to worry about too much. Cass says, I'm trying to eat more greens. Should I get green powder? If you can get your greens from, like, actual green, leafy greens, I would suggest that above a green powder. I have some green powder in my fridge, don't really use it, prefer to get my greens from, you know, whole plant foods. The green powders and stuff I really would only recommend for people who are, like, either super picky, who just can't tolerate the taste or the texture of greens, people who won't get it in their diet in some other way. Hi. They're not going to hurt you. You know, if that's how you want to spend your money and that's how you want to feed your body, it's not going to hurt. But if, like, your intention is to get more greens, I suggest just eating the whole plant food. That way you just get all of the nutrients in exactly the form that nature intended, and they are delivered to your body in a way that you know that your body can utilize and benefit fully from. Okay. Jennifer is working on cutting out oils from her diet. Could you give some tips on cooking without oil? How to minimize veggies from sticking to the pan, etc. Yeah, so there's the idea of water sauteing, which I'm sure that you've heard of. And you guys have probably seen in some of the cooking videos that I pretty much always use, like, cast iron or a stainless steel pan. There's also, like, the non-stick ceramic pans. I've never used those. I don't have I don't have much experience with those. But as far as oil-free cooking, you have to learn the foods in the pan. So, like, if you make your pan way too hot, everything is going to stick to it. If your pan isn't hot enough, some stuff might be more likely to stick to it. There are some foods where if you're like say, you know, you make yourself like a black bean burger. You want to put that down on a really hot pan, and then you want to turn it down. That way it can like crisp on the outside really well, and then lower the heat, and that'll help to steam itself off so that it won't be super stuck anymore. It'll pop itself off. A lot of that is just, I don't know, I get it from my experience when I was cooking as a chef, because even when you're using oil, like, you have to know the same things about food. For veggies and stuff, I usually just throw them in. If some of them stick, I either try to like scrape it off with the wood spoon, or just throw in a couple tablespoons of water or shoyu, or if you're cooking with some kind of like sauce, you just throw that on, and then the moisture takes it off the pan. You just, you know, stir really quickly when the water is added in, and that will be very helpful. I'm trying to think if I have any other tips other than that. Like, I never really learned that much about oil-free cooking. I just stopped using oil. There are other times, especially when I'm baking, where it's like, if I'm gonna make the brownies or something, like, you just have to either use a Teflon pan, which I'm not gonna use, or you have to use like a tiny bit of coconut oil and some flour, and that just is what it is. But as far as sautéing and such, I've never had a problem with just the water sauté. I will say about that though is that if you add too much water, it'll just make your veggies soggy, and they won't caramelize very well. So I usually cook them, let them get stuck to the pan a little bit, try to scrape them off, and then add a little bit of water. It'll pick up all those caramelized bits and de-stick itself. Hope that was helpful. Beth Fawn. My mom had a heart attack last year and says it's because it runs in the family. I know that she's very overweight, and so is everyone else in the family that's had a heart problem, but I'm terrified. So, yeah, absolutely. Like, there can be genetic predispositions to developing heart disease, you know? It's like everyone has their weak link. So some people it's heart disease, and some families it's like a stronger propensity for cancer or autoimmune diseases or kidney disease or diabetes. Like, things, there are genetic predispositions, but generally speaking, the trigger for all of those diseases is lifestyle, diet. So Beth, I don't know, where is it? There it is. I would highly recommend, if you can get your hands on a copy of this book. This one came used from Amazon, so, you know, it was like $2 or $3, including shipping. And Dr. Esselstyn goes through how he was able to reverse heart disease in many of his patients. And these weren't patients that were like, oh yeah, maybe I have some high cholesterol and I'm at risk. These were patients who were, you know, had been handed a death sentence. Like, it's only a matter of time before you die. So, it's really impressive what he was able to do. I know Dr. Ornish has also done some similar studies. If you can get this book into your mom's hands or someone else in your family, do your best. I know that family can be very, very stubborn, even when their lives are on the line. So, all the best of luck to you and your mom, you know? I hope that she listens and is able to implement the changes. Go back in the shelf. Okay. Lucy, I hope your cooking is going well in your ceramic. That's good. Okay. Okay, Holly, that's a good question. What is my argument to the ketogenic community? I'm curious. I know you've made videos on this before, but I'm just curious what your solid statement normally is to a person who challenges you. So, ketogenic diets, I fully admit that they produce significant weight loss, and it happens fast. So, ketogenic diets work for weight loss. Okay? But at what cost? You know? I don't know who ever thought that it was like sufficient to have an entire meal in your day be coffee and butter or coconut oil. And then to go on and have something for lunch like a hunk of cheese and bacon, or God, I don't even know what the I mean, I know what they're recommending eating, but it's like, it's just, where is the nutrition? Like, what we know about human health is that it requires fiber, it requires phytonutrients and vitamins and minerals, and if you're not getting this through your food, you're going to have to get it through supplements. And those supplements are not going to do as good a job as just whole foods, you know? So my argument with ketogenic diets is like, okay, so you want to lose some weight, but you can't stay on this diet forever because doctors acknowledge, like, this is not good for us. It causes heart disease. I know that people who follow a ketogenic diet want that to be up for debate, but it's not. Like, the studies that they cite do not show that saturated fats and cholesterol do not cause heart disease. What those studies usually show is that 2% milk is pretty much just as bad as whole milk, which they use then as permission to just drink as much whole milk as they want, kind of thing. So these ketogenic diets, they don't provide the nutrition that our bodies need, and they provide a lot of nutrients that are proven detrimental to our bodies. Okay? So if you're going to do a ketogenic diet, you're going to put your health at risk. You might lose a lot of weight, but you're going to put your health at risk. And then you have people who come off of the ketogenic diets, and then, generally speaking, they do what most people do when they come off of a diet, is they rebound and gain the weight back very quickly. Usually more weight. So it's not like ketogenic diets have gotten around that rebound effect. And it's not like there's something that you can do sustainably and safely for a long period of time. So, and yes, I know that there are some people who eat ketogenic low carb with a lot of veggies and fruits, although you cannot do a ketogenic diet if you're eating fruits, because they have carbohydrates and they'll kick your body out of the ketogenesis. So, like, you just can't have a healthy diet cutting out major food sources like fruit, like carbohydrates. Your body needs that. And I know that there are some people who are on the ketogenic train, and it's like they're ripped and they look healthy, sure. They're usually like young and have good genetics, and or they like came from a horrible junk food diet and then were able to turn their lives around a little bit using a specific highly calorie restricted diet. But it comes with risk. It comes with risk, regardless of whether or not there are some vegetables involved. No, I have not watched Stephanie, who's done keto for like 9 years. Yeah, it's, okay. Jocelyn Powell says, I wrote a research paper about the keto diet, and I found that it sucks unless you have pharmacoresistant epilepsy. Even then, it still kind of sucks, but it can sort of manage some people's symptoms. Is that pharmacoresistant epilepsy? Yeah, okay. I mean, the interesting thing, I took a short class with Dr. Popper, and we talked about cancer for like one class or something, and in that class I remember she was saying that like for cancer treatment she does recommend, I believe, like a vegan ketogenic style diet, which I didn't have enough time to like question her about that, as to like the whys and hows and like the intricacies of how exactly that works, but I know that there are times when it can be therapeutically useful. Like ketogenesis is a state that our body goes into when it's starving, when it's fasting, so there can be some like beneficial aspects to the whole thing, but again, it's like long term. We know that our bodies need fiber, we know that our bodies need nutrition. You can't really get around that. I'm glad you got off that military diet. That sounds a bit troublesome. Yeah, Brooke, I would agree. You know, it's like keto can work for a while, but it's like it's not a long-term solution by any means. Okay. Oh yeah. Stephanie says, I saw a pharmacist at work do ketogenic diet and she stopped because her cholesterol skyrocketed. I mean, I'm not surprised. I know that there are a lot of reports of like, I did a ketogenic diet and my cholesterol went down, and it's probably because they were eating like a diet with like tons of processed foods and trans fats as well as animal products, and then when they cut out the trans fat and some of the processed food and started severely calorie restricting, which is what a ketogenic diet is, it's severely calorically restricting. Sure, yeah, your cholesterol is going to go down because you're starving. That's fine. But it would probably go down even lower if you switched to a whole plant food diet that was full of nutrients and fiber and things that are going to nourish your body. Dear God, what is that? Oh, Jocelyn. She says she has a friend who's allergic to gluten, and she believes that it's healthy to smother her salads in ranch dressing and eat meaty, greasy, gluten-free pizzas. And she makes fun of my diet. Yes, hypocrisy is interesting, is it not? Rebecca, that's awesome that you're encouraging your boyfriend's dad to eat better after his second heart attack. Again, like, if you can get a copy of Dr. Esselstyn's diet, just, like, you know, these are the things. I like to go on Amazon, and it's like, you know, you find these used copies for, like, 40 cents, plus, you know, $3 shipping or whatever. I think it's great to just, like, buy a bunch of them and then just leave them places. Like, I anonymously left a copy of How Not to Die at my doctor's office for him. Just like, well, her. She was, she's my nurse practitioner lady, the one that I really liked, because she's like, so, she's like, well, I don't want to run too many tests because we don't need to overdiagnose you, you know, it's like, that's just ridiculous. And I was like, you're awesome. So I left her a copy of How Not to Die. Just like, hey, you don't need to know who this comes from. I'm not going to cross that weird boundary, but hey, maybe you want to read this. Maybe not. Maybe you leave it at the Salvation Army and someone else picks it up. Yes, Madeline, what are my thoughts on powdered whole plant food supplementation like moringa and amla powders? Like, I have some amla powder. I got it because Dr. Greger was talking about it, you know, being high in antioxidants and whatever. I got it for, you know, internal use, and I got it because I heard that it's great to put on your scalp and on your skin, so I'm going to try it for that too. I think that they can be, like, fun additions to the diet where, hey, I'm going to make a smoothie, and it's like, I have a bunch of bananas and kale and berries in my smoothie. Yeah, sure, I'll throw in a little amla powder. What the hell? Maybe it'll give me some more antioxidants. That could be a good thing. I don't think they work for stuff like, hey, I'm gonna eat a whole, giant, meaty, gluten-free pizza. and then I'm going to drink some amla powder, and it'll balance itself out. No, that doesn't work. I don't think they're necessary for health. They're like one of those things where it's like, could be great. Could be completely useless. I don't think it's harmful. Whereas you get other supplements like maca powder, maca root, that have a considerable effect on hormone levels. And that makes me take pause, because I'm like, okay, well maybe this isn't just like a fun, harmless thing, because it could affect my hormones. So I'm probably not going to use that one. Okay? Wow. Super A main. Super A man. How low is too low for cholesterol? My doctor told me I need to start eating eggs in order to raise mine from 88. So your total cholesterol is 88? Because that's pretty amazing. I'm not sure if you need to start eating eggs. Like, I'm not sure what your diet looks like now, but just adding, like, some more fats to your diet might encourage your body to produce a little bit more cholesterol. I do know that some people are genetically just have very low cholesterol. I've also heard reports in places like the China study that say that some rural Chinese had cholesterol as low as 80, or in the 80s, and that they seemed perfectly healthy, but I think that might be a question that would be better suited for someone like, Dr. McDougall or Dr. Barnard, or someone who has a little bit more medical experience. I know really the only threat from having too low cholesterol could be, the formation of cell walls could be compromised, and or your hormones, your body's ability to produce sufficient steroid hormones could be affected. But I'm not positive. If you're having some sort of hormonal symptoms, it could be because of the cholesterol. But again, I think there's someone better to ask than me. Christina says, I have so many friends who like or try the ketogenic diets, and they argue that it makes them feel better, but I'm so baffled that they don't acknowledge the dangers of it. So it's not uncommon for a ketogenic diet to make someone feel better, just like people, who start paleo, which is really close to a ketogenic diet. People start feeling great. They feel so much better for a while, because they're switching from a diet that was full of, like, processed food and meat and dairy and whatever else. And then, like, they switch to a ketogenic diet or a paleo diet, and the processed foods are gone. The trans fat that they were getting is gone, except for the trans fats that are naturally found in meat and dairy and such. I mean, like, the added hydrogenated oils, right? So it's not uncommon for people to start feeling better, especially on a paleo diet. Right? Because you get rid of all the processed grains, all the refined foods, and then you get rid of the dairy too. And you start feeling better. And the body also has this, like, beautiful phenomenon where if you are starving to death, ketogenesis starts, and it takes away that pain of hunger, and it takes away a lot of the pain that's associated with starving to death. I guess that makes it easier, when you're starving to death, to search for food. I don't know. But it happens. It's not uncommon. Okay. Bentonite clay and psyllium husks. Like, to eat? Psyllium husk, I'll start with that. It can be very irritating to your colon walls, and that's generally speaking why it works to, like, flush you out, right? Because it irritates your intestines, and they're like, get this out, and so they spasm and try to shoot it out. What usually ends up happening is your intestines start to produce more mucus, to coat the intestines to prevent the psyllium from touching, and that is why psyllium husk and other fiber supplements tend to stop working over time. So you just end up getting more constipated, and then the mucoid lining of your intestines gets thicker and thicker, which can affect nutrient absorption, but I'm not going to make claims about that too much, because I don't want anyone to freak out about fiber. But just try to get your fiber from whole plant foods. Avoid like the refined stuff. Figure out what works for your body. I know I've said it before, if I eat whole grains, even though they're like whole and full of fiber, my digestion slows down a lot. So I feel better on like sweet potatoes and pumpkin and mostly starchy vegetables. But I still eat whole grains because they're delicious. Okay. Oh, and you asked about the bentonite clay. I assume you mean for internal use. Sometimes I use it externally. I think when we start getting into like the real detoxing stuff, like bentonite clay, like in taking charcoal internally on a regular basis, or other things that are used for detox, we run the risk of getting into that purity mentality where, like, when are we clean enough? If you're trying to do something like chelate heavy metals in your body, you need to work with a professional who can help you do that dietarily, But most of the time, I've found that most people using these products for detox would just be better off if they ate a good diet, allowed their bodies to detox on their own, and stopped adding in all of this crap that irritates their insides and makes them worse. So, generally speaking, sure, there are times when, like, animals in the wild will eat dirt or clay as, like, a cleanse. Elephants do it. But I don't think we need to be doing this regularly. Okay. There you are. I'm gonna start blocking some people. That just sounds weird. I'm kind of sick of it. See ya. Okay. Isn't activated charcoal used to treat drug overdose? I cringe when I see recipes for charcoal lemonade and charcoal iced cream. I don't think it's a reason to cringe, Like, charcoal, if it's from a responsible source, like, dear God, don't go get barbecue charcoal and eat that. But, like, I have some activated charcoal that's made out of coconut husks, and so it's, like, sustainably produced and blah, blah, blah. I have not eaten it yet. I was honestly thinking about it. I was like, maybe I could make some banana ice cream with some charcoal. But then I'm also thinking, like, why the fuck would I do that? Because I eat a good diet, and, like, my body is pretty clean. Like, we don't have to do that. And yes, charcoal is used for drug overdoses. Like, you pump a bunch of charcoal into someone's stomach, it's going to absorb all that stuff, and then they either poop it out or throw it up or whatever. But yeah, I think that's just one of those things where it's like, why are we spending money and time on this, and why are we drinking charcoal? Like, sure, use some on your skin or something, give yourself a spa day, but Excellent question, Lilypad. I hear about people cutting sugar out of their diets. I know they cut processed sugars. I also know they limit fruit intake. Is that healthy? Should we limit sugar intake, even if it is from fruit? Excellent question. Getting rid of processed sugar is important because processed sugar, like, it can trigger inflammation. It can trigger other issues throughout the body, which are associated with the development of diseases. Like, most diseases are associated with inflammation. Sugar is associated with inflammation as well. Refined sugar, right? The thing about fruits is that fruits come with some fructose and some glucose, sure, but they also come with a bunch of fiber, and they come with phytonutrients and vitamins and minerals and all kinds of goodness that prevents that inflammation, prevents the free radical formation, and thus, and it prevents, like, big blood sugar spikes. So, no, I don't think it's healthy to limit the amount of fruit that we eat. Dr. Greger has done several great videos on, like, how much fruit is too much. That's a great video. I highly suggest everyone watch it. Dr. Greger also mentions in some videos, as well as in How Not to Die, that when these huge mortality and morbidity studies are done, and then they try to figure out, like, what is the leading cause of disease, not eating enough fruit, I believe, was number 1. So people are not getting enough fruit. It is virtually impossible to eat too much whole, ripe fruits. I don't believe that fruit is something we need to worry about. That said, I know that, I think it's Dr. McDougall, like, he advises on his diet to, like, limit the amount of fruit that you eat because of the sugar. I think that's kind of misguided. I think that may be a recommendation that's trying to pander to people who do believe that fruit is bad. And I don't see sufficient evidence to back up that recommendation. So, no. I think limiting fruit is quite unwise. I would recommend eating as much sweet, delicious, ripe, juicy fruits as you possibly can, especially if you're one of those people that has a sweet tooth. Like, I used to be one of those people that would sit on the couch and I would just think about ice cream. Or, like my mom, she would do this all the time. She would make an entire pie, right? And then she'd eat one slice. And she was one of those people that could eat one slice of pie, and then she just didn't think about the pie ever again. Like, that pie spoke to me. I had sugar problems because I was, calorie restricting and my brain was going crazy for calories, right? Now that I eat as much fruit as I want, like, I can't remember the last time I craved anything sweet. Ever. And if I have a sweet craving, I have some fruit. And it's great. Okay. The Lulu Room. Do plant fats affect the body differently than animal fats? Yes, in a big way. If you look at differences between saturated fats and trans fats, cholesterol, all of which are found in animal foods, they have very different effects on the body than do unsaturated fats, which are the fats that are generally speaking found in plant foods. So, animal fats and plant fats are very different. This is one of those topics where you can just, like, Google it or read about it, or I highly recommend reading How Not to Die, and you will learn so much about the difference between the nutrients found in animal foods and plant foods. So I'll pull it out just in case you've never seen it before. Get this book, okay? Yeah, that's a good question, Christina. Also, about sugar, do you think adding a ton of coconut sugar to smoothies like Freely does is good for you? I don't think it's good for you. When Freely and Durian Rider started putting sugar in their smoothies, that was when I started to like, oh, that's not smart, like, I thought we all knew this was bad. I think that was really a really misguided recommendation. Like, if they had just stuck to whole plant foods, it would have been so much better off. And their followers would have been so much better off, because the refined sugar is not good for you. Like, spikes in inflammation, spikes in free radical production, and thus spikes in DNA and cellular damage, spikes in insulin levels, which can definitely lead to weight gain and issues with, you know, type 2 diabetes or polycystic ovarian syndrome and other hormonal issues. So I don't think that refined sugar doesn't belong in the diet in a major way. You know, when I make a salad dressing or something, I'll use a tablespoon of coconut sugar. Or, like, you know, we're gonna do a sexy tablespoon episode tomorrow. We're gonna make brownies out of black beans, and I'm gonna add some coconut sugar to that. So, it's like, there are times when, sure, use some for a purpose, but, like, don't put it in a smoothie. For God's sake, it's already sweet. Yeah, and Stephanie says, like, I love coconut sugar and oatmeal. Oatmeal is one of those things that's, like, oatmeal is incredibly healthy, right? If having a little bit of sugar in your oatmeal makes you want to eat your oatmeal with some berries in the morning, like, have a little bit of coconut sugar. It's fine. Good question, Tara. Can you explain whether or not there is a difference between the saturated fat from coconuts / other plant sources compared to saturated fat from animal products? Looks like, okay, mine paused, but okay, we'll pick back up. I have read that yes, there is a difference. So, like, saturated and unsaturated fats, they come in a lot of different varieties. And it can get very complicated very quickly. But it's also very interesting. But if you look at, like, saturated fats, you can have, like, long chain and short chain. You can also have unsaturated fats that are long chain and short chain, blah, blah, blah. But, like, I've heard that the saturated fats in, say, coconuts are medium chain saturated fatty acids, which means that they, like, interact with our artery walls differently. But to be fair, I also believe that this was in a book promoting the consumption of coconut oil. So I take it with a grain of salt, so to speak. From my understanding, it's not a big enough difference to be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to eat a ton of coconut oil, and that's going to be totally healthy. I still advise, like, don't overdo it on the coconuts, and don't overdo it on the oatmeal. You know, it's like oatmeal has some saturated fat in it. I can't remember if tofu does or not, but tofu is, like, surprisingly high in fat. So these foods, like, you don't need to be afraid of them, but you also need to be mindful about how much you're getting. Because even though there is a difference between, you know, animal foods and animal fats and plant fats, like, they can still have ill effect. How about dates? Yeah, so... Sorry, 1 second. Sometimes you just see a troll, and you're like, I've got to get rid of you. You. Yes, you. Bye. Okay. How about dates? Yeah, dates. So, dates do have some fiber in them, and dates have some minerals in them that can be good for you. They're also 98% sugar. And they're really freaking sticky, so they get stuck all on your teeth and between your teeth, and I blame all the dates that I was eating for a lot, for all of the, like, dental issues that I had. So I feel about dates the way I feel like most sugars, including coconut sugar, which is, sure, have some, like, use it in a salad dressing, or, like, have it as a snack every now and then if you just have a sweet tooth craving, sure, have some. Make sure you brush your teeth afterwards and floss and use a mouthwash. But, I don't think we should be sitting down and eating, like, a pound a day as a meal, which I did for a while, and it didn't go well. How come I haven't done more collabs with other YouTubers? Yeah. Well, they're on other islands, for starters. And, I don't know. Maybe I'm not taking this whole YouTube thing seriously enough, but, like, I like my life quiet. And, like, Claire, I think she's, like, Plantiful Soul on Instagram. Like, she seems like a wonderful human being. Like, I would love to know her and spend some time with her. She, like, sent me a message when we were renovating and we were just, like, ass deep in construction, and she was like, hey, can I come stay with you? And I was like, I'd love to, but we don't have any space. Our house is tiny. Kids everywhere. Levi gets up and goes to work at 5 a.m. Like, it's just not happening. And I just like my life like that. The other thing I'll say is that I always used to get the question too, like, hey, why didn't you ever go and meet Durian Ryder and Freely? And I was like, I hope that that's more clear now, why I never did that. Because something inside me was like, just don't get involved with other people. Not to imply that, like, I think Ellen Fisher is a fucking sociopathic narcissist. Like others maybe. I'm just saying, I don't know. I think she's on Maui. If I ever go to Maui, I'll try to meet her. Or maybe she's on Oahu. I don't even know where she is. Okay. Lily, any thoughts on girls losing their period on a vegan diet? Yeah, this is another one of those things where, like, people freak out a lot, and then it's like, they usually come to me and they're like, oh my god, I don't have a period, oh my god, what's happening? And I was like, it's probably because you're freaking out. Like, step one, calm down. I have the same reaction when people come to me and they're like, I can't lose weight, and I can't stop binging, and I don't know what to do, and oh my god. And I'm like, first step is chill out. That's first step. Like, I understand being frantic. Or like, oh my god, I have adrenal fatigue and hypothyroid, and oh my god. It's like, it's because you're freaking out. Like, yes, there are other reasons, sure, but first step is to stop freaking out. Okay? So, if you're not having your period on a vegan diet, step one, don't freak out. Step two, like, I never like talking about this because it's like, people start freaking out, but, like, periods don't make any sense to me. Prey species, walking around bleeding for 7 days. Explain it to me. Does any other wild animal have, like, a 7-day menstruation? Not to my knowledge. I know that, like, domesticated animals do. domesticated animals that are being, like, fed processed food diets do. I also am aware that, like, sure, humans, when they were evolving, you know, it's like they reach the age where they can produce babies. They probably are producing babies, and when you're pregnant, you don't have a period. I've heard that when you're lactating, a lot of women don't have a period, so it's like if you're pregnant or lactating, sure, that wouldn't be happening. Makes sense. Whatever. Anyway, I still question it. I know I lost my period for 18 months. I was raw vegan. I had also been diagnosed with, like, polycystic ovarian syndrome sometime before that, so it's like my cycle had been spotty and really painful and just, like, inconsistent at best, you know. I went vegan, it was regular, raw vegan, it, like, got regular for a little bit and then just stopped, and it was gone for 18 months. I kept ovulating. It wasn't a problem. My hormones were normal. I was having blood tests done. Like, everything looked fine. It just wasn't showing up. I'm not saying that everyone who doesn't have a period is fine and nothing concerning is going on, but if you're not having a period, like, have your doctor check out your hormone levels and just see what could be going on. If something is catastrophically out of balance, you're going to have to address that. I would suggest doing it through, like, as naturally as possible with lifestyle changes, explore some, like, herbal medicine possibilities before you agree to take synthetic exogenous hormones, such as a birth control pill or other hormone pill. But, again, I don't feel like we need to freak out. She says, also, what are your thoughts on no salt, oil, and sugar diets? So that would be like the SOS free diet, like sugar, oil, salt, none of them. I've made a video about salt and my experience on no salt diets. I do better with a little bit of dietary salt. I use sea salt or Himalayan salt. Excuse me. And I prefer that. I feel like my body prefers it with my history of adrenal issues. I don't use oil in my diet at all. I think that's a great dietary thing to do for yourself. And then added sugar, we've been talking about. As much refined sugar as you can get out of your diet, the better. Whole plant foods as much as possible. Okay. Capricorns do like simplicity in their lives. Yeah. Is hummus healthy? So hummus, generally speaking, the hummus that you're going to buy at the store has oil in it. Usually it's like safflower, canola, or olive oil. Any added oils aren't great, right? They also usually have tahini in them. Now, I think that small amounts of tahini can be great because it's high in calcium and it has a bunch of other great nutrients in it and you get some of your, omega-6 fats. That's cool. Have some hummus with tahini in it. I like to make hummus at home with some garbanzo beans, either canned or ones that I made, and then a little bit of tahini, lemon juice, and some seasoning like cumin, maybe a little bit of Bragg's liquid aminos to give it some more flavor, and that's how I like my hummus. No oil necessary. If you need your hummus creamier, just add in some of the cook water from your beans. It's great. Okay. What should I do if I keep craving salty foods / why does it keep happening? Can be two reasons. One, salt is like a highly addictive flavor. Humans are conditioned to love salt. And it's not just humans, it's like most mammals. It's like there's a reason why if you hang a block of salt on a tree, deer will come lick it. It's because we like salt. That's the same reason that, like, elephants are eating mud, is because they want the minerals and the sodium. It's the same reason that moose dive to the bottom of a lake to consume the plants that grow at the bottom of the lake. It's to get the sodium, right? So, totally normal to have some salt cravings. In my experience as well, like, I had adrenal fatigue issues. Your adrenal glands are a big moderator of like fluid balance in your body and electrolyte balance along with your kidneys, like they work in conjunction. And so for me, with my adrenal fatigue, I feel better when I'm having some salt in my diet, right? It's really easy for me to overdo that because it's so tasty, you know, but I just have to be wise and mindful and purposefully think, you know, okay, I'll add a little bit of salt. I could add more, of course, and it would be even more delicious, but I'll just stick to a little bit. And as long as I allow myself to have a little bit of salt consistently, and as long as I'm drinking remineralized water, you know, then I don't have really intense cravings for salty foods. But I do like salt. Okay. Hold on. Yes, Vero, unfortunately you did miss the kale hypothyroid talk. That was like the first, that was the first topic that we brought up, so, so when I quit this live stream, you can go back and watch it, and it's the first question. Okay? Do I believe in aliens? Absolutely, I believe in aliens. I do. I'm not going to share it. I've had some personal experience. First person to make a joke about being probed gets blocked. Okay? In a real way. Ooh, you know what I need to do? Aha. Alright. I can't share my experience. Not on, I don't want to, do I want to be that person? I'll do this follow-up questions. Thank you for answering my question, Lily. So what are the foods/herbs you ate to get your period back? I just started eating, like, more cooked foods again, and mine eventually came back. Higher fat foods can be helpful. I know that there are some vegans and, like, people who the entire basis of their channel is, like, get your period back, you know, that's their whole thing. And I'm not an herbalist, so if you want to know more about herbs, you're going to have to talk to an herbalist. Are soybeans unhealthy? Are soybeans unhealthy? Like, no offense at all, but, yeah. No, soybeans are super healthy. Like, you get soybeans, whole soybeans, super healthy. Tempeh is, like, fermented whole soybeans, super healthy. Tofu is crushed whole soybeans that's been compacted into a square, still pretty darn healthy. Then you start getting into, like, soy flour, not so healthy. You start getting into isolated soy concentrate, not healthy at all. Or isolated soy protein, not healthy, because it's a refined food, right? Okay. I have not heard about Rh-negative blood types being a higher life form, i.e. alien. I do wonder, you know, about, Holly, no, I'm not aware of any good thyroid-specific books for, like, whole plant food diets or anything like that. Most of the thyroid books that I read was something like, it gives you all of this information, and then it tells you how important it is to balance your insulin levels, and then they go on to recommend, oh yeah, and to balance your insulin levels, you have to eat a lot of fat and protein, because that's, like, conventional wisdom, right? So then I just have to do my own recommendations as far as what's good for controlling insulin. My thoughts on marijuana? Unnecessary. Like, I mean, it can be medicinal, you know? Like, use it medicinally. Absolutely. Smoke it every day to get high, you're running from something. That's my opinion. Oh, everybody does want to know the alien experience. How do I feel about eating pastas? I mean, most pastas, it's a refined plant food, so have it now and then. You know, I wouldn't make pasta the basis of my diet, but I definitely enjoy some gluten-free pastas from time to time, just because I'm gluten sensitive. If you can eat gluten and you're fine, have glutinous pastas from time to time. Okay. Christina asks, what's so great about liquid aminos, Lily? I see a lot of people recommend it, but I don't really understand the benefits. I don't think it's that Bragg's Liquid Aminos has specific benefits. I just think that it's not as crappy as your standard soy sauce. So I'd say the benefit of it is that it's made, I believe, from like organic soybeans, and they use sea salt instead of processed iodized salt, and it doesn't have a bunch of preservatives in it, and doesn't have gluten in it, and I believe it's slightly lower sodium than traditional soy sauce. So I would say that like Bragg's Liquid Aminos is kind of comparable to tamari, in that it's gluten-free and a little bit lower sodium. I personally really like the taste of the Bragg's Liquid Aminos. It makes things taste like a little savory and yummy, but if you prefer tamari or if you like coconut aminos more, sure. I just don't use, I don't use coconut aminos because they're a lot more expensive. And I'm just that cheap, right? The Lulu Room, I'm not going to talk about fasting again because I've talked about fasting so many times. I've made a video about it. It's called, like, Should I Fast? Is There a Better Option? And I think you should watch that video if you have questions about fasting. Okay? Okay, guys, so we're going to get ready to wrap this up because my voice is getting a little hoarse. Okay. Yes. Bye, Stephanie. Have a good night. Okay. Okay, look. Shit. Do I want to do this? Yeah. Nothing wrong with the cheaper option for sure. Especially when you're cheap. Okay, fine. I'll finish with my alien story, okay? I'm not looking at the questions anymore. You're just, okay. So, hold on 1 second. Let me get comfortable. Let me adjust that, will it? Oh, Beth, you're up at 4 a.m. Okay, I'll go. Beth, just because you're up and it's 4 a.m., I'm going to tell you the alien story. Okay, so I think I was like 19 or 20. This was literally right after the experience on the raw food farm that I just posted about. So after that experience, and I don't know if you guys know this, but like the north coast of the Big Island is like pretty big for alien activity, right? So I was up on the north coast of the Big Island, and I didn't have any like alien experiences up there, but after I got freaked out by all the crazy raw foodists, I got on an airplane and I was like, oh, I'll go visit my sister in North Carolina. So I went to go visit my sister in North Carolina, and she had this friend who is like a psychic, right? She was psychically inclined. And I was like, oh, this like crazy lady, great, okay. I meet the lady and she's like the nicest person I've ever met. Just like super compassionate and down to earth and really grounded, but she just happened to see other entities that share the earth with us, right? So we're all hanging out one night, and we were having a damn good time together. And I mean, like, this lady, she did some, like, energy healing on me and stuff, and, you know, she would talk to, like, my spirit guides, because everybody has spirit guides. I can't talk to them so good, but everybody has them apparently. You know, but she would just blab things that, you know, she couldn't know. Anyway, we're sitting around the table one night having a good time, and she's like, you know, she looks right over my shoulder, which she would just do sometimes. She'd look right over your shoulder and she'd be like, oh my god. She goes, I don't want to alarm anyone, but there's an alien outside the door, right? I got really freaked out, because when I think of aliens, I think of the movie Signs. I think we all do, and it's horrible. So I started to freak out, and I was like, well, do not invite him in. And my sister's like, no, invite him in. And I was like, what the hell? No, you can't do that. He's like, you know, invisible or something. This story, I understand how crazy this sounds, okay? Signs is terrifying. I understand how crazy this sounds. So anyway, she like supposedly was, you know, conversing with the alien, and that's cool. I was still freaking out, and then I had to sleep on the couch that night in the living room, and I kept getting the feeling that the alien was looking at me through the window, which freaked me out. And then I had this dream where I woke up and I was paralyzed, right? But somehow I could, you know, look around, but I couldn't move my body, and I just kept hearing this stomping noise in the house, and I just somehow knew that like the alien was standing outside the window, and I got myself so freaked out that eventually, you know, I snapped myself out of it and I could move again. That was that. And then a month later, I was then sleeping in a bedroom in my sister's house, and so I wake up. I remember I woke up, I looked at my clock, it was like 1:36 or something, and then I look at the window, and I could see the alien standing right outside the window, and it's a second-story house, so he must have been hovering. But he's there, and then, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was like, you know, I heard it in my head. He didn't speak it with his mouth. I heard it in my head, but it was like, I need to show you something, right? Sounds totally crazy, okay? I understand that. I understand how crazy this sounds. So then I start seeing all of these flashes of images through my head. And then he was like, I'm going to do something to you. And I was like, dear God, whatever it is, don't probe me. And he was like, you know, no one's getting probed. So then I get this feeling all over my body, and it's like I'm getting chicken skin all over my body, but 1,000 times more intense, you know, really, really intense. So that happens for maybe like 30 seconds, and then I freaked out. I was like, oh my God, stop. And he immediately stops. I fall asleep, I don't know. And then I wake up in the morning, and I can recall the entire dream, whatever, it was interesting. Another month goes by, I'm still at my sister's house, and I wake up, only this time my boyfriend, soon-to-be ex-boyfriend, was like laying in the bed beside me. I remember looking at him, looking at the clock, it's 1:30 in the morning, I look out the window, aliens standing right there, you know? And he's like, I'm gonna do something to you. And at this point I was like, okay, well, I mean, it's not like you're gonna kill me, so sure. I start getting that same feeling all over my body. It's like goosebumps all over my body, inside, outside, like everything just feels like it's just like electrified or something. Again, it lasts for, you know, like 30 or 45 seconds, and then I freak out, right? And I didn't get any images in my head that time. The first images that I saw was, he showed me like a list of words, and it was places around the world. And then I saw a lot of pictures of like bombs going off, like fire, destruction, that kind of stuff. I don't know what it was. I'm not going to make any assumptions about it, right? Didn't get any images the second time. So then another month goes by. This time I'm in a hotel in Los Angeles because I'm about to get on an airplane to go back to I'm about to get on an airplane to go back to New Zealand with my stupid ex-boyfriend, who should have been my ex-boyfriend. Unfortunately wasn't yet. Anyway, I wake up, I see my boyfriend, I look at the clock, it's about 1:30 again, and then I look out the window of the hotel room, you know, we're on the 3rd or the 4th floor, there's Mr. Alien Guy again, and, did I say Las Vegas? Because I meant to say Los Angeles. I was in Los Angeles. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I see him, he's like, girl, let's do this. Boom, I start getting the same feeling all over my body. It's really intense. Again, like, I freak out after, like, a minute. I get so frustrated with myself because I freak out, but it's like, when it's happening to me, it's really, like, it's scary, and, you know, this alien dude, it's like, I wish he would just show up and we could, like, go out for a frickin' coffee and be like, so, can you tell me about what you're trying to, like, do? Do you have other plans? Like, are you going to flip my body inside out and murder me? Or, you know, like, are you going to take me back to the spaceship? Like, what are we having? I don't know. Maybe he was trying to show me how to be psychic, right? I don't frickin' know. I know that, you know, I have flashes where I can be very intuitive, but then I overthink everything. Anyway, so this happens. This is many years ago now. Eventually I get back to New Zealand, and there were times when I would, like, wake up and see him, but I didn't get any more energetic anything, right? So, never really heard from him. I moved to Hawaii. There was some other stuff in New Zealand that was, like, potentially extraterrestrial related, but we'll never know, really. And then, anyway, I moved to Hawaii, and I'm, like, living with Levi. And Levi he has the strongest boundaries around his house. Like, energetically, physically, like, nobody comes in the fence, okay? Everybody knows that. You don't come in the fence. So, my friend came to visit this last November, and we decided to take, like, a short little mini vacation. So we go over to Kona, to the other side of the island, and we stay in this bed and breakfast. And it's like, everybody's obviously smoked a lot of weed at this bed and breakfast, and, you know, they're a little spiritually inclined, and they had a documentary showing that night that was about, like, near-death experiences, whatever. So, I go to sleep. I'm not expecting anything to happen, you know, but I wake up in the middle of the night, and I was sleeping right next to a window. Maybe I will write an autobiography, I don't know. But I was sleeping right next to a window, and there were bushes outside my window. So I wake up, I look, I don't see anything, but I hear a rustling, and it sounds like something that's pretty big, right? My first thought was like, oh, of course it's the alien. And then my second thought was, dude, I am ready, like, do what you gotta do. I'm ready to do what like, needs to be done, you know? And I swear to God, it felt like I was being electrocuted. Like, I thought I was being electrocuted. I woke up in the morning and I was like, okay, maybe there was just, like, a huge electrical surge that came out of the walls and electrocuted me, because I don't understand what happened. It was so intense. It didn't hurt. It didn't hurt at all. It was just so intense. It was more intense than I ever remembered it being, right? Probably about a minute into it, and I freaked out, and I was like, don't take me to the ship. That's what I thought. I was like, don't take me to the ship. I want to see Levi again, you know? And my friend was there sleeping in the same room, and I was like, how terrible would it be? How terrible would it be that, like, she wakes up in the morning and I'm just gone, and there's, like, no sign of me anywhere. Got beamed to the ship. Anyway. So at that point, you know, I fall back asleep, whatever. Wake up in the morning, and my friend's phone is just dead. Like, her phone was just dead, because it was plugged in. And I was like, maybe we did just get electrocuted. Maybe. But the funny thing was that her phone died, and then she was pretty upset about it. She's like, oh my God, I'm far away from home and my phone died and I have no way of getting in touch with anyone. We drive 20 miles away from this place and her phone just turns on. It's so weird. But anyway, that was, I'm not sure about the physical changes to my body. It was around this time. It was around the time, like, years and years ago when I was with my sister in North Carolina that, a lot of the hypothyroid stuff, like, many of the symptoms had cleared up, and I was starting to feel really healthy because I had been on, the raw food vegan diet for a while, and I was feeling good. But it was around that time that, like, healing really felt like it had been completed. I was also learning Reiki around that time, so I was doing, like, more Reiki energy. And then, like, the psychic lady, she was giving me some healings and stuff, too, so I don't want to assign any specific physical changes that I'm aware of, anyway, but, I get kind of frustrated sometimes, because it's like, if I go to bed and I was like, I'm like, dude, I want to talk, like, come chat, like, come buzz me, whatever. It just doesn't come. So, I don't know. And I know I spend so much time running myself in circles in my own head that I'm just not, like, capable of tapping into that, like, intuitive place as much as I kind of wish I could. But, that's, I don't know. I've also always been like, because, like, when this psychic lady was around and I was able to talk to her and she was, she would, like, talk to my spirit guides and stuff. That was so helpful in me learning to trust my own intuition, but I've honestly never met anyone again who like, claims to have that power, who I trust. And so, yeah, maybe it was all of the shit papayas that healed me. But, I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of at a stalemate as far as, like, cultivating my own intuition. I feel like I'm at a really good place spiritually. Like, I feel like I have a great connection to myself, to the earth. Like, I can feel the energy of when I am grounded. Like, when I am energetically grounded, it's a very specific energy in my body. I can feel vibes off of other people really strongly. I can feel my energetic boundaries being violated by other people very strongly. And that's something that developed a lot more when I was doing massage. There would be times where, it's like I'm touching someone and I'm like, oh, their energy is, like, trying to come up here, and then, it's like, make the bubble, get grounded, that's not happening, so, I don't know. Jessie Kitten, I have definitely had that thought about, I've had that thought many times about, like, Fukushima and all the radiation, and thinking about what happens if belligerent Cheeto Man drops a nuke, or if we get nuked by North Korea. I'm like, maybe, just because I feel so powerless in every other way, I'm like, maybe the aliens know how to fix this. And the other interesting thing is, like, I'm reading this book, right? And it's about transmuting toxins and stuff, personally and from the earth. And my thought process is, like, what if that's possible? What if that is actually possible? And again, I say that just because I feel so powerless in every other way. That, having this kind of stuff gives me maybe just, like, the sliver of hope that I need not to kill myself. I say that in the least morbid way possible. Holly, it's not a bad book. Like, it's an interesting book. She, the author of this, she does a lot of, like, shamanic stuff, and while I believe that the healing practices of indigenous people are beautiful and can be learned from, there's a lot of cultural appropriation that goes on with that, and that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. Like, oh, we're not talking about what's happening to the cultures where these practices came from, and how white people showing up in their backyards claiming to be shamans just like them affects those people. Like, let's think about that, right? Am I ever going to call myself a shaman? Absolutely not. But yeah, that's my thoughts on those. I also just saw a question, do I have any, like, do I have crystals at all? Yes, I have some crystals, but once I started learning more about where crystals come from, like, in many cases, they are violently mined from the earth. Like, the earth has created crystal deposits in certain places for a reason. Those areas are probably places where, like, Mama Earth needed that energy. And I don't think that it is my, like, it's not my kuleana, it's not my purpose in life to take those because I feel like I need them. I know I've used crystals in the past, like I've used them with the Reiki work that I do, I've used them personally. I love the energy that they have, it's beautiful, but I really worry about how that energy, or how they're taken from the earth. And I don't like that. It doesn't sit well with me and how I feel about the earth, you know? I've even gotten really particular about, rocks and stuff, and thinking more about if I really believe that the earth is a beautiful soul of her own, right? She has the right to consent or not. So, you know, there being times where, oh, I found this rock and I think it's so pretty and I want to take it home with me in my pocket and then throw it on a shelf somewhere and probably never think about it again. Well, I just displaced a rock, you know, who in Hawaiian culture is like thought of as its own entity, you know, and I know that in a lot of indigenous cultures, like the earth and the rocks are thought of as their own entities, and I don't think it's my right to take that. Yeah. I don't know my blood type. I'm sorry, I just don't know. Yeah, the paganism stuff is interesting. Yeah, come on in.
Speaking in?
Yeah, I need to stop. I'm losing my voice. Babe, you're like 16 shades darker than you were earlier. What the fuck happened?
Good sun, man.
Come over here. Look at how... I don't know, maybe it's not nice to, like, talk about how dark you are, but, like, you're really tan right now.
Yeah, kind of dark.
It's kind of scary. Anyway.
Shall I sit in? No?
Yeah, if you want to sit in for a few minutes.
Let's see if I can do this back.
Jess, do you know your IQ? I think you're...
Huh?
Sorry, someone wrote a funny comment. Anyway. Do you guys want to talk to Levi for a little while?
Nah.
No?
No.
That's an interesting question, Jessica. I feel like stuff like ayahuasca and mescaline and marijuana, I feel like it can be used in a, in like a medicinal ceremonial way to like open up the mind in ways that it otherwise wouldn't be, or it would be a lot more difficult to do. But, I think they're abused mostly and just like misused, and then there are a lot of people who aren't ready for that level of opening and awareness who end up potentially harming themselves more than anything else. But I definitely think it's possible. And we were talking about aliens.
Ooh, oh, for real?
Yeah, we were. If you're gonna be here. I know, right? He was only out for an hour. I don't understand it. Levi, what are you working on around the house?
Nothing right now.
He's relaxing. He's
Took a
actually like, this is the first time in the time that I've ever known you that you're relaxing.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah,
I'm so inspired.
Been going to the beach like 3 times a day.
I don't have a P.O. box. It's fine if you misspelled his name. We all misspelled it.
The beach was awesome.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jennifer. Sometimes you like tap into an openness that's so intense that you can't close it when you want to. Yeah. Okay. Oh my god, his teeth are so white. Okay, I'm tired. I feel dehydrated from sitting in front of this fan and talking. Don't you agree that Lily is incredibly intelligent and smart?
I do agree. Sometimes too smart.
Levi, what sports have you played?
Played football in high school. And I wrestled a little bit in high school, but the spandex wasn't working for me. Yeah, that's about it. I ran a little bit after a couple years ago. I ran a half marathon.
You're a good runner.
Yeah.
You're very naturally gifted with running.
I like running.
Okay. Do you surf?
I surf, yes. I haven't surfed for like 4 years, but I got laid off last week, so I took full advantage. I surfed almost every day, 2 times a day, all last week.
Well, and I mean, I guess you use the term surfing like interchangeably with like the bodyboarding.
Oh yeah, bodyboarding.
Because, you know, he had his back fusion done, and so it made. Do you want to disclose this?
Yeah, I guess they,
you know, his back was fused, and now his left leg is numb on the outside, so it makes it harder for him to like surf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do almost everything normal except surfing. I cannot steer the board anymore.
Yeah. Do you have similar spiritual beliefs as me? I'm not even sure if he knows what my spiritual beliefs are. I feel like we do, we just don't.
We don't talk about it that much.
We don't talk about it that much. I'm kidding. What are we making for dinner tonight? We have some ulu, some breadfruit. We have sweet potatoes. Got some beans.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm gonna chop up some tofu real small and throw it in the air fryer.
Don't do all of it. I want some of it just plain.
Yeah.
But
yeah. If you have an air fryer, you should chop up tofu in like really small cubes, season them, and throw them in the air fryer. Makes it taste like crispy. It's just really crispy, like popcorn tofu.
Have you had any alien experiences?
I don't know if they're real. I think I might have made them up in my head. But yeah, I've seen some things out there. Nothing like hers though. I've just seen things in the sky that not supposed to be there.
Yeah, Levi is laid off. It happens a lot in carpentry. Like you get laid off, and it's basically just like a 2-week vacation or 3-month vacation or however often. It's really common. Like it's not a worry at all. He'll be picked up within the next week or 2 again, and he'll be back at work.
Tell them how great of a carpenter I am.
He's the best carpenter ever. I got him a t-shirt. The first Christmas we were together, I got you a t-shirt that says best carpenter ever, and you've never worn it. So I know how good of a carpenter you are. Do I ever notice tofu going bad? Well, yeah, like if I leave it in the fridge, it goes bad pretty fast. Like high protein foods go bad faster than like carbohydrate foods, just because protein has a tendency to do that. Anyway. Holly, I want to follow you on Instagram too.
Is this like a time lapse thing?
It's a little bit behind.
Oh.
Where are you? Oh, you're supposed to be there.
By now, yeah.
I'm confused. Anyway, okay, I think I'm
Holly
gonna.
Golightly. Oh, I know. Yeah, she comments a lot on my thing.
Do you?
I'm actually following. I'm pretty sure.
Do we have any more plans to adopt more dog babies? Possibly. We met Petunia's brother today, but we're not going to. Okay, Holly Golightly 80. Yeah, I might actually see you guys. I actually just made a video last week. I have to edit it about how we met, so I'll just save that for something else. Yeah.
Oh, you and I?
Voice.
Yeah. Oh, you and I met? We did a video?
I did.
Oh, you did it by yourself?
I did it by myself. Okay. I'm gonna go.
So you're gonna leave out all the bad parts in?
No, I actually disclosed those.
Yeah.
I told it like two versions. I was like, this is the magical fairy tale version, and then this was reality.
Did you tell them my reality? Like how you snobbed me?
Didn't snob you.
See, she did. You're not gonna get the full story.
I did mention that though. My Instagram is LilyKoi Hawaii. So yeah, if you guys aren't following me on Instagram, you definitely should. Cool. Cool, this is so cool. Yeah, okay, she says wear the carpenter shirt on the next sexy tablespoon. Mm-hmm. And we would do traditional Hawaiian dishes, but so many of the ingredients aren't going to be available to most of our viewers, so I feel kind of crappy about doing that. But anyway.
Oh, we're going to start doing Hawaiian dishes?
Well, someone asked we should, or said,
Ooh. Yeah.
Could you make a Getting Over Bad Parenting series? Possibly.
Holy shit.
We'll talk about that. Having to reparent yourself.
Like as an adult? As an adult trying to...
Dude. And I've been traumatized by my parents, you were traumatized by your parents, and now we're two people trying to have a relationship, and we're just with all the triggers in the minefield, and just trying not to re-traumatize each other even more. It's it can feel like a full-time job sometimes. But I feel like we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting
there. No, we definitely are getting there. We kind of came from the same place. So we know how it feels to be hurt.
They have questions about your scarification, how much did it hurt?
My scarification?
Yeah.
You can't really see it in the
it's
dark,
not popping out too much. You like to say that it doesn't hurt, but it obviously hurt.
It did hurt. It hurt.
Yeah, the truth is you never really do get over bad parenting, but I feel like I'm learning how to live with it and to deal with the tendencies that it has left in me, and I feel like I'm learning to be content with it and content despite it, and so it's yeah, it's not like you wake up one morning and you're like, damn, I feel normal.
Yeah.
It's
not like that. For me, I really abusive parents growing up. But then when I started going to therapy for it, I thought it would get better, but I felt like I had more resentment for my parents. Towards my parents, and I started to get angry at them. Because I'm a parent now, and then I realized that it took a lot of sacrifice for me to make my daughter's lives, the way it is now, filled with love and exception, and they took the easy route, Yeah. So I felt a lot of resentment towards them. And only now, I've been going to therapy for about maybe 3 or 4 years, only now I'm starting to open up the connection path with my mother, starting to accept her back into my life. So it's just really slow process.
Hey, don't steal my kisses. Yeah, I feel like the girls, being around the girls and just being tuned into them and their needs and how their feelings are so, it's easy to tell when they're upset about something, and it's easy to, it's they act out when something's happening to them. And I remember acting out like that when I was a kid sometimes. And, you know, I'm capable of catching myself and not getting mad at them, you know, for having a feeling, but to ask, gosh, I wonder what's going on with her today that's making her feel this way or making her act out in this way.
Mm-hmm.
And then having that, like, openness with her, with the girls, instead of being mean to them, basically.
Yeah.
And that, having that experience has actually made me more pissed at my mom.
Yeah, same here, me too.
Because, like, fuck you for not doing that for me. You know?
Yeah.
Or for not giving me the benefit of the doubt when I was a child. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And you were a grown-ass woman with a master's degree in psychology, and, like, anyway, we don't have to open up that box again.
The thing is really behind you.
Yeah, I don't know why mine is so behind, but anyway, we'll just pause it. Okay. See, he hated small dogs too. He was like, absolutely, you can't get a small dog. But then they're just so cuddly. Okay, you guys, thanks for making this such a fun live stream. It's so long, I don't know if anyone else is going to be able to watch the whole thing, but thanks for having a good time with me again. I guess it's about time to go cook dinner now. And I hope you all are having a wonderful Saturday evening or Sunday morning. I hope that some of you who are up at 2 or 3 or 4 a.m. are now going to go to bed or get some rest or go watch the sunrise and take a nap later, whatever. Thank you. So much love to you guys. Yes, get therapy if you can. It's worth it. Now it's just the awkward ending.
See you guys. Oh, the push button thing?
Yeah. Will you do it for me?
Where is the button?
You press finish, and then it makes it even more awkward because it asks you again. Okay. Bye, guys. See? I'm pretty sure it's still going right now.
Oh, did I push the wrong one?
Oh, babe.
Sorry, guys. See you guys on Instagram.